Pyrotech versus Dunk. The matchup of 5v5 Pyro versus Pyro, the extraordinary adventure that is only available and can only be available on this channel, Fortress Faceoffs. I hope that you will enjoy it with us. My name is Aggro. That guy over there is Lecter, and behind the camera MDL, but of course a whole bunch of other people involved in Fortress Faceoffs as well. Here we go. We are moving forward to this semi-final match, and already there is action being held in the luggage area behind the point. Pyro all moving together as one big colossal snake of power and influence, taking down Dalibor, taking down Grip. My goodness me, Grip is gone already.
Yeah, this is a very dominant fight for the blue team. They took out the two top players for the red team, and then just snowballed it into a cap here. I remember last time we saw this map, it was an incredibly lengthy mid fight. It took, I want to say, it took almost a minute before they got the first cap in. And well, here we see the complete other end of it. We see a very fast and a very dominant mid.
Not only that, but they're holding themselves not quite on the point, but actually slightly behind it in most cases, with only Zero and Popsy forcing themselves out. That doesn't seem to have paid off for them, though. Although it's still 3 versus 4, it's almost certainly going to go the other way for them. Zeno and Popsy, the only two left alone, left alive, in making a bit of a resurface though, but with Nupurus the only person actually falling down in that particular push. It looks like Dunk has very much made their presence felt, and they have even done as much as capture the point while they're waiting for this other team to spawn in, as they have done so, and now pushing their way back out. They've got I think a little bit of a space for themselves. Grip finally taking on Krios, and no, they've decided to leave it alone. They're now sort of recuperating.
We're seeing a lot of different little scattered fights there. There was a lengthy fight in the shutter area where the red and the blue Pyro were trying to get each other, like using the corner and the shutters closing and opening. It was a very funny little interaction, but it does look like blue manages to get a couple picks here, and they'll probably manage to get the point off of it because it's a relatively large player advantage. Yeah, Nupurus, the first time that I've seen them actually utilize that gas passer, get a team member soaked in gas and then not be able to capitalize on it, was quite incredulous, inconceivable to see. To bear witness to a massive fight taking place in luggage. We have a lot of Pyros going down, which seems to be the only class available to die or even to make a kill, but it is not a surprise for anyone watching for the last hour or two. Yeah, the red team now turning more towards the point, trying to get that point time. But it looks like the blue team is still putting up good resistance here. Yeah, Pyrotech managed to hold their own, not just in terms of their 1v1s and capturing and holding the point, but actually in terms of like not letting red on the point long enough to make an effective move against it. Having said that, here come the Reds, here come Kaibo, here come Dalibor. As we know, these players are very capable of doing a lot of offensive damage, and while there's a massive exchange taking place, they seem to have been displaced from their natural habitat. Now Grip has been allowed the opportunity to move forward against no one. I think Zero is the only player that he had a chance to set on fire. Zero finds health back, but also finds a bit of offense as well, although once again being left alone long enough to allow this offensive Dunk team to get on point and to actually capture ? No, they haven't done so yet. The time is still ticking down for Pyrotech, and until such times as the last player goes over, that was a clock very much on the side of Pyrotech. Yeah, the red team kind of clawing back here when it comes to the time on the clock, and it looks like they're taking some 2v1s here and trying to trickle down the blue team as the blue team attempts to waddle at the point.
Yeah, we've mentioned before, like teams that appear to be incredibly well balanced. I would say that this is, in terms of action, in terms of actual fighting, two teams that are incredibly well balanced. It is just very peculiar to see either one of these teams actually makes significant enough damage to hold not just their own but everyone's. I am absolutely at a loss to make any decision as to which team that I would say is an outright winner in terms of capabilities or creativity. But now we see, even with the red point being held, even with 60 seconds left on the clock, neither one team seems to be capable of making a significant play. Even as much as Grip going down once again, but Dalibor defending the control point for all their worth. They're really pushing in now. Krios is not going to be left alone, although they have taken a good health pack for themselves. It doesn't mean that they're going to be left alone.
All the way into the lobby, wow.
That looked like their health pack was enough for them to make a difference themselves.
Yeah, that was quite incredible. It looked like the red team was really trying to push out that frag, but then the blue player finding that pack really turned that fight around.
Absolutely,
I think that goes to show the power of the back scratcher right there, where the increased health really made a difference.
It's interesting seeing a back scratcher on the ground. That was clearly a player that thought that they could get in with another kill that way and not quite pulling it off. But timer falling on the side of Pyrotech once again.
It's getting very low on both sides. We have 14 seconds to 30 seconds, so this is a bit of a nail biter for both teams here.
Absolutely super tight as it can possibly be. 10 seconds left. Here we go. What can be happening in the last 10 seconds? This feels more like a basketball game than anything I've ever experienced before. Certainly in terms of Worlds of the Team Fortress 2, but a lot of effort being placed by this blue team to ensure that they get themselves on the timer. Even though the timer has gone all the way down, it's going to fall on the side of Pyrotech. They have the point right now. They very much want to hold on to the point, and it is going to be all up to Dunk to actually make a play here. They know they've got 10 seconds to go, and so they're
grouping
waiting
up together. They're waiting for the one push because they know if they get one good push, they got to get that point time, though. If they don't get the point time, they won't get the overtime.
Well, that's
they get a little bit of
into
point
a situation where they are now on the point themselves. They have nowhere to go but the point. They can't even afford to be held off for even a moment. This is finally numbers.
The Air Blast will come in clutch here if they manage to keep the blue players off the point, and it does seem like the Air Blast was enough to do the job.
I would have never have gauged that, but the Pyro backblast was all that it took to win that final point for themselves. I don't think Pyrotech were expecting that either. I saw them as being an incredibly dominant force, certainly against Dunk, certainly against anyone, I think, at this level. They are the dark horse of this round. They got through on a bye, but I don't think a bye is going to get them all the way through. They have got work to do to defeat Dunk.
Yeah, that was a very intense end of the round there. The red team grouping up because they knew they had a little bit of time left and just barely managing to make it to the point in time. Very well played by them.
But it doesn't necessarily follow that they'll be able to do it again. Dunk is very much forcing their way up against these players. 3 versus 1, and Krios actually holding their own, actually pulling back into their teammate, and they've kind of done it. Wait, was that an oh my god barbecue that someone got there? Because if that was too awesome. I unfortunately missed it. Hopefully something will come up in the logs that we'll look at later. But either way, the point is in the hands of Pyrotech right now. Dunk falling in. Negativity proving to be a positive force for this team so far, as they're pushing in against Irving, who we have seen play elsewhere, so they know that we have some experience with these players. But nonetheless, experience is one thing. You've got to capture the point. You've got to win the rounds. And right now, Dunk does not seem to be doing that. They have some awesome players, but it's not going to be enough to take the point from Pyrotech, who are just owning at the moment.
Yeah, the blue team did a really good job on that mid-fight. At some point, they managed to get 2 players behind, and then they just created like this 3-way pincer, and it was just very difficult for the remaining red players to do anything.
Speaking of the remaining red players, we got Grip versus Krios in a awesome fight. Not quite to the death, though. Krios is being left allowed. And chat seems to have made their own decision about who they think is going to be winning. So perhaps with your own channel points, you should decide for yourself who you think is going to be taking this. Of course, a little bit, I'm sure there's going to be a little bit of over or under predicting, given that Dunk already has a point on the clock, but I don't think Pyrotech can be dismissed quite so easily. Even right now, we find ourselves in a 5 versus 2 or 4 versus 2 scenario. Zeno being taken out, and Popsy also looks like they're about to lose their life, but actually Dalibor manages to lose it instead. It's Krios and Popsy ganging up together, and this is what we've seen time and time again when these players manage to cause a ring about a scenario where it is multiple players versus a singular player. It never goes the way of the singular player, or very rarely.
Yeah, it looked like Blue was making the common mistake of sending players one by one and not really waiting for their respawners, but then it ended up turning into an advantage for Blue as Dalibor got a little bit too deep.
Thank you very much for the hydration in chat. I am definitely going to take use of that while I gulp down this liquid. Oh, I hope you heard that. That was the sound of enjoyment. That's Pyro Tech also sounding off their enjoyment right now. The clock is 100% in their ballpark, in their squad.
Very chaotic fight with some Blue players coming from the red side during the fight. Actually managing to take out the bulk of the red players and then winning the fight here, despite it looking, despite them not looking favored at the start of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I say the sense of ownership seems to be very much with Pyrotech. I'm seeing Zero right now. I'm wondering, are they hanging out? They're hanging out in a corner. Are they hanging out in a corner looking for ammo, or are they just hanging out in a corner looking for someone to go behind? Well,
looked like an ambush play, yeah.
Yep. I mean, didn't necessarily work out for them, but still, like, weirdly, the numbers seem to be on the side of Pyrotech. How are there always more players on Pyrotech than there are on Dunk?
Yeah, it's actually pretty impressive considering that they have the point, and so their respawns are so much slower. You would expect the red team to get like a pick and then maybe make some space out of that, but it's not really going that way. Though of course, as I say that, the blue player does get dropped and a second player gets dropped, and so suddenly the red team is the one taking the point.
Well, they need to be. The time has completely whittled its way down to 0 for Pyrotech. All they need to do now is say, like, it's an easy thing to do, but all they need to do in the next 1 minute and 40 seconds is capture the point just once, and they've won. So everything is on the line at the moment, and don't these guys know it? So Grip is hanging out and doing a little bit of a pooty match with Krios. Has to leave them alone, though. Note they can't actually abandon the point at all at any stage, which is really forcing them into a scenario that they don't want to necessarily be in, and in fact has done for them completely.
Yeah, because this looks pretty over right now with the 4 players on the blue side swarming the point. Grip trying to make a stance, trying to push them up, and actually does manage to get a grip on the point. Grip, and then his teammate coming in. So they're able to stall a little bit, but it doesn't look like it's enough.
No,
sadly,
absolutely
but
not.
We do go to a 3rd round.
I wish I had put some points into this one, because this looks like it's going to be the closest round we've had so far. Pyrotech coming out of nowhere, offering a reasonable resistance to Dunk. Not quite enough to do enough damage in the first place, but nonetheless turning it around. Now they've got a bit more experience on the map. Now they know what to expect. Now they know how to play this map. And I think the strat they're using is go in, provide almost bait, and then moving back when they seem to be just about to lose it, moving back to the rest of the team and allowing the rest of the team to take the chaser out. And right now, a lot of the team for Dunk has been taken out. Not necessarily that method. I think a lot of DM took place right there. But now Dalibor Dalibor out on their own, waiting for the rest of the team, obviously, to come in order to provide some support. Here we've got a couple of players joining them. And I think now they're going to start moving forward. Although Eng very much in that ambush position, as they've been before, not really able to make full use of it. But here we go. Here is the exchanges, quite close to the point itself. Grip making a lot of movement choices right there. Not able to find health pack in time and goes down. So with Grip gone, can the rest of the teammates make any real sense of a change on the map itself? Iving going out with very little health left in that final exchange. Dalibor left on their own. Quite clearly, the last horse in the race. Going up against Krios, taking the attack from above. Popsy is finally able to take down Dalibor, and the exchange finally falls in the favor of Dunk as they are capping at a rate of 2x. I think they're waiting for the last one to join before they finally cap it off, and they did get there in time.
It's a pretty smart play by the red team, waiting for their teammate to respawn so they don't get delayed. It did take a while for them to find any real foothold in this round. They kept losing the fights, and they kept not really finding any picks to work with.
Yep, Popsy going in on their own, seeing if they can make some sort of play against negativity, perhaps doing the old bait and switch once more time, but it's not really worked out for them this time. Potato left out on their own versus 3 versus 4 with a cheeky play by Kaibo coming in, making the flank movement. I would expect these players to run around at this point and get any sense of health that they can possibly find on the map. They're not choosing to do so, certainly in the case of Kaibo, who has been left with almost nothing in terms of health after a little long distance battle versus Potato, but nonetheless, Peps, they're gonna run away. Yep, doing the right thing, picking up the health now, and with both teams 100% health, it is falling on the likes of Grip to do their damage. Moving in with Dalibor now, the two of them going up against Krios.
It looks like we do have a bit of a pause here.
It is a pause. It's the first time I've seen a blimp, a helicopter, and a plane just holding in the sky.
Yes, suspended so perfectly in the air.
With the hydration in chat, I'm going to make full use of it now. Here comes the unpause.
I must say I'm getting a new appreciation for the cool visuals that happen with all the fire particles, the man melter shots, the dragon tree shots. There's definitely a certain amount of spectacle when it comes to seeing all of the action unfold. Looks like a big scuffle though. Red team dropping some players. Seems pretty balanced, still pretty balanced 2v2, and then the red team pulling out on top. I think the player lagging out or crashing will be any second now, so we're gonna see if that makes a significant impact on the round, as it does take a little bit of time for them to pop back into existence. Yeah, there was the pause.
Yep. And game has been unpaused now, so I'm not sure which player it was that dropped out, but they're all back in force now, with the entirety of Pyrotech moving in as if it's one large chunk of a turtle with a pyrotechnic fuse in its mouth, pushing in hard on this point itself. Everybody has been clustered together so effectively. Dunk managing to pull something out of their pyro bag of tricks and getting a lot of damage going into the last player of Potato, and that was one shard, Crispy Potato, that managed to remain alive for the longest time, but not quite long enough to allow the rest of their teammates to spawn in. Having said that though, effort is now being placed. There's only 15 seconds left.
There's
on the
a lot
side
of pressure on the blue team to push in here.
They have got to get in, they've got to make a play, they've got to do something in order to turn things around.
All the red is still up.
And they are finding themselves in a terrible situation, although having said that, Grip is very low, but not enough to actually die. And the round, and in fact, the entirety of the map falls the way of Dunk. I certainly could not have predicted that that was how things were going to turn out as the maps ticked over one by one. But Dunk, nonetheless, proved to be victorious in this particular situation. I would have loved to see these teams play against each other. I'd have loved to see them in a semi-final, or in a grand final, I should say, where there are more maps on the line than just the best of one. But in this best of one scenario, Dunk came out on top.
Yeah, it was a very tense match. The first round was a very balanced one. The second round, it seemed like the blue team was very dominant, and then on the last round, really the red team just they took hold of the match again. It was a very back and forth in that sense. It wasn't. I wouldn't say it was close in the same way as that canopy match we had earlier, but it was more close in a sense that. Yeah, the teams they had different, like in different rounds had a stronger or a weaker hold on the map. Like it was yeah, just very back and forth like that, like a ping pong if it was dominant essentially.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's always a sense when you're playing in these kind of tournaments and you get a bye when you effectively are allowed to go through to the next round without having playing your match. That you feel like you've got a freebie. It's like, yay, I'm through to the next round. But of course, the thing you miss out on is the experience. You miss out on playing against your peers, playing against a team that you actually stand a chance of both being beaten by and defeating, and having that sense of cohesion that forms as a result of playing those matches.